Hello, Varshini.
We're going to go ahead and get started. Today is Monday, May 13. I'm calling this meeting to order of the MPO Technical Advisory Committee. Lindsay, do we have a quorum, please? Okay, good.
City of Sarasota vehicle is running.
At least we know it's happening. Yes. It must be your vehicle because I didn't bring my vehicle. So you say Sarasota vehicle?
Oh, that's me, yeah.
You have a
It's running.
I parked over.
But it's like.
It's on.
Oh, that one.
Yeah.
I'll take it.
All right, now that we cleared that out, so we do have a quorum. Let's stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item 3, public comment. Do we have any comments? No. Okay, moving on. Next up, we have the approval of minutes for March 11th, 2024. Everybody reviewed. Do I have a motion to approve? Okay, motion made by Megan Louie, second.
Second.
Okay, Clark Davis. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Good. Motion carries. Action items. We have 5A, FDOT functional classification and urban boundary update. Boguchi? He's online? Okay.
Yeah, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
The only thing is I'm not able to see it in the screen, but so basically just want to give you a quick update. Last time Kyle Purvis from FDOT District 1 had come and presented to you with the TAC on the update on the functional classification and the urban area boundary. In continuation to it, we had extensive coordination with Ryan as well as from the city of Sarasota, and we were able to make some changes to the functional class, both in Sarasota as well as Manatee County. And again, I'm sorry that I'm not able to see the screen very well, but I'm just giving you a quick update. Varshini, are you in the first slide or where are we at this?
I think all so they're having a little bit of technical difficulties. They're going to try to move the slides.
Okay, so sounds good. So yeah, if you can move the slides, basically, as I mentioned, this is a quick update on the functional classification and urban area boundaries. So we had extensive coordination and we have revised the urban area boundaries, which is kind of almost final. And we have already provided the changes in the functional class. So there are 3 levels of changes we did. One, so there are some new roadways we added to the functional class. Now, and then, for example, in Sarasota County, we added a couple of roadways, like in Manatee County, we added 44th Avenue as well as Fort Hammer Road. So those are the new additions, but changes have been already made based upon the change in the ADT and so forth. And also the 3rd level of changes was based upon the change in the urban area boundaries. For example, when it changed from rural to urban, we were able to change the functional class also. So that's a quick summary of it. If anyone has any additional questions, I'll be happy to answer on that.
Any questions? Yeah. Yes, Clark.
In looking at the map, I won't go through the list, but I saw 2 roads in Manatee County that probably need to be removed. They're local roads, and 4 that may need to be added. They're collector roadways that provide bridge connections in the urban area. I can send written comments to Babuji. I don't know if it's too late to make further changes, but I'd at least like to get it on the record.
Yeah. But again, I'm sorry, I'm not sure who's talking, but yeah, I would be, if you could please send me those comments, we will take a quick look at it to see what could be done. And I'm sure this is not too late yet, because we are still in the process of submitting our draft to the central office for the review, but it's not too late yet. Please do send whatever you have, and then we'll take a quick look at it.
Go ahead, Clark.
Babuji, it's Clark Davis. You'll receive an email from me. I'll send it from the web tool or just your regular address.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ryan, as you know, we also coordinate with the City of Sarasota, and we were able to get into 3 additional roadway segments into the system. So they are happy with it. So if anyone else has any other comments, maybe please let us know. But I just want to thank the TAC as well as the MPO for being very helpful in coordination between the district and us, and getting a good product out.
So the action item here is to recommend MPO board endorsement of the FDOT functional classification and urban boundary update.
Including additional comments received from local jurisdictions.
Including any additional comments received from local jurisdictions. Do you have a motion?
So moved.
Okay. Clark, second? Wamina, okay. All in
Yeah,
favor?
only one question I have. So far, I only heard from Clark, I think. Does anyone else have any other comments, or it's only one from Clark? Okay,
I
thank
see
you.
no comments.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you very much. Appreciate everyone's time.
Okay, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Good, okay. Motion carries. Thank you, Babuji.
Thank you.
Move on to item 5B, the tip. Ryan?
Yep, that'll be me today. Good morning, everyone. So as usual, we're back on our annual update of the Transportation Improvement Program. We're closely with the state in development of this. They provided us 2 downloads in the current year, one in February and the most recent in April. We take those and we incorporate those projects into our Transportation Improvement Program. We also do an evaluation of all the precursor material that basically describes how we program and how we decide what projects, including last year's priority list, a number of performance metrics and things that are used to evaluate those projects. This list has been disseminated to us. We do a brief evaluation of changes over the last year, what's been programmed into the current year, as well as I wanted to make a few notes about some projects that are still priorities that are not programmed. As you know, this is a 5-year work program. There are a number of projects that are still priorities that just simply don't have phases funded in the current 5 years, so those might not show up. A couple of these include US 41 Main Street and Ringling Boulevard, US 41 Myrtle and MLK Way, 10th Avenue from Riverside to 17th, US 41 at McIntosh, Palmetto Trails Network, Great to Palmetto Connector, Cortez Bridge Replacement, Honey Point, which is up by the port, and I-75 and 681. All these projects are maintained on the NPO's priority list. However, they do not have a current phase funded in the or the TIPs. So those are projects that will still be considered going forward. I just wanted to make you all aware of some of those inconsistencies. So if there are projects that you think should be there, that's probably the reason why they aren't. So with that, I'll certainly take any comments or questions about the TIP. The full download link provided to you is an attachment. With that, I'll take any comments or questions about the TIP itself or the process that goes to adopting.
A very minor comment. At the time when we applied or submitted, we were using our former names, but now this
Sure.
TIP has both names in it, so perhaps using consistency.
Yeah. Bruce.
Comment?
Yeah, minor comment on page 31, the top 10 unreliable intersections. I think you written it as if they are segment, if you could change it to add.
Sure, yeah, so that's going to be updated too. As you know, we're in the process and that'll be one of our later presentations. We're in the process of updating the congestion management plan. That was from the 2021 update. So until we have better data, that will come out here in the next few months. That top 10 reliable segment will be updated. We can amend the TIP at any point. So those segments will continue to be updated.
What I'm saying is it's written as if it's a segment, it's an intersection, so change the
Sure.
to.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. We can do that too.
Any other comments, questions? Right, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Great. Any second?
Second.
Thank you. Okay, all in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next up, we have item 5C, TIP amendments. Pam?
Yes, it's a good segue to follow what he was talking about with the TIP. So the first section is with 5C. There are a couple TIP amendments that need to be added to the current TIP. We have State Route 789 east of Sunset Drive to Bird Key. It's a resurfacing project managed by FDOT. And there was $2,129,476 was added to the construction phase. Then there was project 431350-7, that's 15th Street East, 301 Boulevard East from south of 59th Avenue East to south of 56th Avenue Drive East. It's a lap program project, and they're adding and reconstructing lanes. What was done with this is it's $4,500,000 was added to the design phase, but it was funds that was transferred from the right of way from the two other phases, both 6 and segment 8. So the funds that was on right of way was moved to design on segment 7. So because there was an addition to 7, that's the amount that was there. Then the other project was project 453563-1. It's the US 41 transit signal priority for Sarasota and Manatee. And that was another $454,500 that was added so that they can start with the purchase of the signals. And then we had an addendum that was on 5B. Now this one goes on the downloads that were added to the TIP when they were able to, this is the upcoming one. And this was, that was the signal with the addendum. Then there is a deletion, and that was the deletion from the right of way on the two other segments, segment 6 and segment 8 of 15th Street, so that we could add the funds in the current year. So in the next year, those will be gone. The funds were put on this year.
And if you want to add the TSP as well, question said it.
We did add the TSP.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay, any comments, questions?
So it's a handful of changes to 15th Street East. It's State Road 789 resurfacing, and it's the transit system priorities. There wasn't another addendum, right?
No, so those 3 items.
All right. Thank you.
That's it. David?
Thank you, Albie. The legislature or the governor has not yet signed a budget. So
No.
we can expect sometime after that occurs and it may be several months, further amendments in the TIP. And as the funds that are in, that haven't been allocated to specific projects in the new fifth year get allocated, then we'll be amending the TIP or revising the TIP report.
Right, there will be the roll forward that happens yearly, that takes the funds that are in FY '24 to move them into '25, and that will be an amendment.
So in September, expect further TIP amendments.
Anyone else? Do I have a motion?
Move the committee recommend board approval of the TIP amendments.
Second,
Second.
Thank you.
all in favor? Signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. 5D, Joint Transportation Regional Incentive Program, project priorities, Ryan?
Thanks, Evan. Yeah, so we were bringing these back from you as a draft in March, received a few comments. I didn't included a large project in this list from Manatee County, as well as had some conversations with Brian Kordak in Polk County to direct the order of the whole transportation list. We did agree that we would swap annually. We're probably going to revisit that agreement again going forward. So right now, as it stands with Sarasota County being first on the list, and then either Polk or Charlotte in their respective lists, and then Manatee County received trip funds in the last cycle. So with this, we're happy to take any comments or questions, or if there needs to be additional changes made to this list, we will be taking this to the board next Monday for adoption and consideration. So with that, I'll take any comments, questions related to the trip priority lists. Really?
Nothing. Do I have a motion then?
It'd be a sweet, so move, committee recommend board approval of the joint trip list for this year.
Anybody second?
Second.
Perfect. All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Clark, stepping up. Every meeting, I guess. Maybe. All right, next up is 5E 2024 Public Participation Plan. Grace?
Yes, thank you. Okay, hello everyone, I'm Grace, the Public Involvement Coordinator here at the MPA. And I'm just going to give you an overview of the 2024 Public Participation Plan. The Public Participation Plan is a federally mandated document that guides the MPO's public involvement efforts. And it has to be updated every 3 years and sent out for a 45-day board review and report update. So the PPP includes an outline of the plan of the MPO's objectives and goals for public involvement, a toolkit for techniques and strategies, and evaluation of the MPO's tools and strategies that we use to determine what is effective and then make it for what is not. The plan also includes the MPO's Title VI and Limited English Proficiency Plan, or LEP for short. The intent of the LEP is to ensure access to the planning process and information published by the MPO where it is determined that a substantial number of residents in Sarasota and Manatee counties do not speak or read English proficiently. So there were several changes in the public participation plan this year, but I'm just going to go over 3 major ones. The MPO improved and added new public outreach tools such as active campaigning and Eco Interactive, which is for the TIP. The MPO website went through a redesign that launched in April of 2023 to make it more user-friendly. And since the website update, 2 other MPOs have reached out to complement the new website and ask for guidance on how to improve their websites. And yeah, and the Title VI and Limited English Proficiency Plan update now reflects data from the 2021 American Community Survey 5-year estimates. hopefully you guys have a chance to look over the rest, so. There are still opportunities for just like any comments before the board meeting. And you can submit comments on the PPP at board meeting during the public comment section of the meeting. It will hopefully be adopted. Thank you, that's all. Does anyone have any questions? Okay.
All right. So recommended action is to recommend MPO board adoption of the 2024 PPP, including the updated Title VI and limited English proficiency plan. I have a motion, Claire.
Move the committee recommends board adoption the public participation plan update.
All right, anybody second?
Second.
Megan or Nick? Doesn't matter. All right, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Interesting, my file says PPP and PPP again. Do you want to do another presentation, Grace?
Oh,
Okay.
I don't descriptions, Jane, sorry.
Next up is 5F, Florida Gulf Coast Trail Letter of Support, Nina.
Thank you. So this is to bring a letter of support to the MPO board as part of the consent agenda on Monday. We thought that this is an opportunity to affirm local support for the Florida Gulf Coast Trail, and this will be submitted to the Florida Green Basin Trails Council. On March 27th, 2024, this year, the council voted really for the first time since the program was started to re-rank the 14 regional trail systems across the state. And the Florida Gulf Coast Trail is one of those 14 regional trail systems. Sarasota Manatee MPO is 2 of 7 counties along the Florida Gulf Coast Trail. And for those of you who are maybe less familiar, all 14 regional trail systems are adopted by FDOT as part of the Sun Trail system, and there is a small bucket of funding available for projects along the Sun Trail system. At the March meeting, the Florida Gulf Coast Trail was ranked number 4 of 14, which is a fairly high ranking, given that the council really wanted to keep the top 2 projects at the top of the list to see them through to completion, and then prioritize the Heart of Florida loop as number 3. The Florida Gulf Coast Trail is about at 40% completion, whereas the top 2 ranking are near 90% completion. So we really wanted to take this opportunity to reaffirm local support for the Gulf Coast Trail as they're moving those top 2 towards completion, so that we may stay at the top of that list. The Gulf Coast Trail is also integrated into our long-range transportation plan via the active transportation plan. So we are just looking for committee recommendation to approve the Gulf Coast Trail letter of support at the board meeting today. Any questions?
I have one, but it's completely separate. What is number 3? Which one is number 3?
Number 3 is the Heart of Florida.
Interesting. First time.
I'll give you an editorial comment. You know, the last time they did rank them on a statewide basis, the Gulf Coast Trail was number 3.
Was it number 2nd?
Right, at one point. And so that trail project came out of the blue, was supported by some legislators, and the department elected to fund a $20 million PD&E on that study.
So that is
for that trail, right?
that's the Collier to Polk.
So that's the Collier to Polk Trail that came out of the blue that got. Okay. So part of Florida has been around for a while, and I don't know where it ranked before though.
I couldn't tell you either, but from the council meeting, it sounded like they really wanted to prioritize moving projects that are work systems that are closer to completion before ranking the other.
And Nina attended their meeting and we gave an update on some of the, substantial and significant progress that has been made within our region and surrounding parts of the Gulf Coast Trail. And so we should be right there, and this is designed to keep keep our projects front and center, both within our region and especially at DOT and the DEP, Department of Environmental Protection.
Yeah, last time we had, it was Coast to Coast Trail and then it was us, because we were number second. But once they had said that once they completed the Coast to Coast, then they would focus on the Gulf Coast.
St. John's, and then,
Yeah.
Yeah, so
we'll keep moving forward.
we will try to keep moving forward, yeah, until we hit a hard stop and we need that Sun Trail funding.
If I may add, so one of my takeaways from the council meetings is that seeing local support for the regional trail system is very important. And so I think this letter to the council is one step in that direction. But more so also seeing local activities around trails. And I think we were able to successfully communicate that at the council meeting, that there's a great deal of planning at the regional level, at the local level, and a great deal of funding also locally going towards trails. And this all, lends in the ranking of the trail system generally. There's also a conversation going on around a Gulf Coast Trail Alliance, which is in early stages of development, and so we'll participate in that when that gets kicked off. And then either the foundation or the council Greenways Trails office and Trust for Public Land will be hosting a 2-day trail conference, for lack of a better word, in early February of next year. And that will be at the Venice Community Center. So early, tentatively, just mark your calendars for that.
Thank you. Anything else? We have a motion. How do you?
I'll make a motion to recommend the board approval of the letter of support.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right. Moving on to item 6, presentation, 6A, FDOT report, National Highway Freight Priorities, call for projects. Amanda?
So good morning, everybody. I know we're having some technical difficulties, so I'm just gonna pop up the clock for you this morning. I'm Amanda Tyner. I'm from Florida Department of Transportation. I work in the Intermodal Systems Development Office. So I really get to touch freight in multiple ways, whether it be truck, whether it be rail, whether it be aviation. I really kind of have my fingers in the pulse of all of freight movement throughout the district. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Perfect. And in saying that, it gives me the ability to have some funding that is a little different than other folks. A lot of times with our FDOT funding, we do have a lot of limitations, I'll say. Not necessarily coming from internal, but just restrictions that are placed on the funding. With my particular program, we have the ability to get federal funding. And federal funding, even though I know initially you're probably thinking she's crazy, federal funding is also very difficult to get your hands on and to be able to get in the pockets of our local communities, but it's really not. So this just kind of gives you, if you're not familiar with our district, this gives you just the bulk of it. And it gives you from our freight perspective, lets you know what kind of transit we've got going on in the district. Our freight, we do have an intermodal logistics center over in the Winter Haven area. Airports, and don't forget our beautiful seaport over in Manatee County, which is very close to you guys as well. So why we think freight is so important is because freight really moves Florida. Freight moves all of the goods that we need to be able to survive and to make our businesses strive, right? That is like the bulk of what is happening to get us our Amazon orders, to get us our Publix orders, to get us our Walmart, delivery orders. That's how we're getting the stuff to us. About 95% of the freight, of the manufacturing goods is given or moved, if you will, by freight, by truck traffic. So this is the reason why you see so many of those tractor trailers out there. And don't forget, they're very important. I do know, congestion wise, that they are a little bit harder to deal with and a little bit more difficult to get around. But just know that they're there for a purpose and for a reason. And as you can see, there's probably, I would say definitely more than 18 of us in the room right now. 1 out of the 18 of us is impacted by freight. What does that mean? That means it could be me because I live in the freight realm. It could be a diesel mechanic. It could be a truck driver. It could really be somebody in the manufacturing industry. So just to really kind of hone in on how important freight is to your municipalities. As far as freight goes, we do have some truck parking projects going on. We also have some roadway projects going on as well. And 11 projects, getting ready to be 13 projects over with the Seaport. We're going to try to push 2 through here at the end of the month. Truck parking facilities, the closest one that I would say that we have over here to this area would be Charlotte County. We have one going in at Jones Loop. It just got inked for design, so we're in the early initial stages of design. But we are going to try to push through a PD&E for a truck parking facility over at the port. The port is willing to work with us to, in kind, if you will, some land to us so that we can bring a truck parking facility to that location. And we definitely think that that would be helpful to be able to get that truck traffic moved through there a little bit better. And this is really the reason why I wanted to come and talk to you guys and really put this in your ear, because it's not something that has been as prevalent. It has been around since about 2015, but the changing of the way central office has handled this funding, it's really kind of changed up quite a few times. This funding now is open to all districts all across the whole state, right? All 7 of our districts have the ability to get this funding. It's about $65 million worth of funding as a whole. But municipalities or Florida Department of Transportation, we can submit for projects through this particular funding request. It's called National Highway Freight Program. And why it's important to you guys is, even if you have roadways that are not like your US 41s or your 75s, not ones that are inherently state roadways, even if you have county roadways that are high freight traffic, you have those feeders and those arterials that are coming in, but they have a huge amount of freight traffic on them. We do have the ability to have some wiggle room to move them onto our National Highway Freight Network and get funding to bring improvements to those roadways, whether it be mill and resurface, whether it be 2-lane to 4-lane, whether it be a PD&E, just to see if there's any feasibility of any reason why that roadway needs to change. This year has really been the first year that it's been really kind of open carte blanche to everyone. Not that it hasn't been in the past, but we've really tried to push it this year. This cycle was a little bit, we're running a little bit behind per se. Our application deadline changed to June 5th. And we have really been trying to push that information through our MPOs and through all of our community partners. So this year might not be, I know it's because we're a little bit late in the game this year. This year might not be the best time to jump in 2 feet first. But if you're sitting in here and you're thinking about you have these roadways or you have projects that could potentially be freight related, and freight related could also mean we're doing some type of pedestrian improvement, right? I need to make sure that those peds and those bikes can also move with that freight as well. It could be something like ITS systems. The gamut is really open. Grade crossings for rail, or really across the board. It's a really open funding source. But so as you're going through it, you're thinking maybe not for this cycle, but for next cycle, typically our applications are open in March. That's when we start pushing that information out. You guys have those projects and you're thinking about, ways that you can move people and freight through your communities easier, faster, more safe. Please don't hesitate to reach out. I can walk you through the cycle. I can walk you through the process. We actually submit the application on your behalf. I don't want to say that the application is easy because that never ends well if we say something is easy, but it is not a typical 20, 30 page application process. It is a 1-pager that's an Excel spreadsheet, very minimal on the initial phase of the application itself. And very, very easy to navigate. I'll put it that way. Again, some sample project types. We've been most successful with truck parking facilities for this particular project. For these types of projects, we've also had some good success with some PD&Es. We've done a few bridges. They've done grade crossings up in District 2 and District 3. And I-4 has done truck parking projects. I mean, really, it's really, really open as far as the project types. And just if you're not familiar with our freight office and what we do have publications that we put out. You can have access to them out on our central office's shared site. You're more than welcome to go glean any of our information or pull any info or any data that we have in our publications. Please feel free to be able to use that for your, anything that you're doing, any type of cleaning that you're doing in your municipalities. And as always, we cannot do this without our freight partners. I can tell you that they really, really 100% keep me going. They are always open. Their doors are always open. They keep me in the loop on what's going on, what's working for them, what's not working for them. Simple things like letting me know that it's taking them 4 minutes to get through a red light that it should only take them a minute to get through. Those small things, just letting us know those types of things are what help me to help them, and then vice versa. When I need to glean some information on them, if we're having some issues with trucks and their particular trucks in the area, we can go out and mitigate it in the, play nice in the sandbox, get it taken care of before it gets to the enforcement side. And that is all I have. You guys have any questions? I know that was a lot of information all at one time, right? It's early in the morning.
For the grant you described today, do Port Manatee or Sarasota Bradenton International Airport have the ability to make application for those kinds of grants, or do they need local government support?
No, they can absolutely. We always do like to get our NPO or our boards to BOCCs to support. Even if we don't have it on the front end, we can always run that application. I could tell you, Lakeland Lender up in Polk last year did a project for, again, doesn't seem freight related, but they did a project to essentially connect two roadways together, two local roadways. So say like 600-ish foot of roadway and do some pedestrian improvements, but it's super heavy freight in that area because they have Amazon that has expanded 3 times there. They have a ton of freight traffic that comes in and out. So definitely, by all means. Yes, sir.
You were applying for a couple of projects in Sarasota and Manatee. Could you tell us what those are? And then just based on some correspondence from Manatee County, we asked them to take a closer look at US 301 and consider adding that to the National Freight Network. Recommend the transportation systems management and operations improvements, like smart road type improvements.
Right, absolutely.
And also start looking at potential capacity improvements within that corridor, like funding with PD&E. It's not in our plan at the moment, but it's something that, it affects our whole region.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So for this particular cycle, I believe Manatee is the only location that we have in this cycle that we're submitting for. And that's for the truck parking project that I was talking about. But anything that you guys have on your tips and on your freight priorities lists or on your MPOAC freight priorities list, by all means, any of those projects, if they have a heavy freight component, would be, definitely be eligible. And even if you don't think that they have, usually anything above 10%, we look at kind of a heavy freight area. Even if we look at the numbers and it doesn't inherently look at it at first, let's take a deeper dive and look at it because it may be something that is coming forward because maybe I know that there's 2 or 3 distribution centers that are coming in that are going to impact that area. It might not be right now, but then that way we can be proactive as well. So don't think that it's off the cuff just because it doesn't initially look like it. Let's sit down and look at it, and I'm happy to come in person or set up a Teams meeting, anything to do to chat with you guys to give you some more education for sure.
All right, any other comments? Questions?
Easy today.
Thank you, Amanda.
Thank you.
Next, we have the Bear Island Complete Streets Improvement PD&E study.
Hello, everybody. I want to apologize first off. You can ask Amanda. I usually am a lot more chipper in the morning. Unfortunately, I had a 2-year-old who chose to fight me all night, and she won. So, my name is Adam Rose. I am the project manager for the Barrier Islands Complete Street PD project. I appreciate you all letting us talk to you today. As you can see, this is the FDOT compass. This is part of the whole reason of what we do. As you can see, the two biggest components of this would be safety and communities. Communities being the biggest part of why we're here today, coming to you guys, getting your idea of what it is you want, what would best serve, in this case, Anne Marie Island, and trying to understand the benefits and kind of setbacks of what is on your guys' mind. Today, the agenda, we're going to go through project description and status, followed by purpose and need. We're going to touch a little bit on safety, project background and approach, schedule, and then obviously we will, as probably a lot of your presentations go, we'll end with contact and then questions. So with that, I will hand it off to my colleague, Colleen.
Hi, thanks, Ellen. Hi, I'm Colleen Ross, and I'm going to be going through the project overview with you all today. The project is located on Anna Maria Island within the cities of Bradenton Beach and Holmes Beach. The project limits are broken into two segments because the project doesn't include the portion of State Road 64 from State Road 789 to the south and State Road 64 to the north. So the project begins to the south, just north of the Longboat Bridge Pass on State Road 789, extending north to State Road 64. And then that is about 3 miles, 3.7 miles. And then it picks up again at the intersection of State Road 64 and Gulf Drive and extends north along Gulf Drive to 85th Street or White Avenue. And that's about 2.2 miles for a total project length of about 6 miles. The corridor is approximately, the corridor is predominantly an undivided 2-lane facility, and it serves as the primary corridor along the island. It is also a key evacuation route during emergencies. Okay, so this project presents FDOT's project delivery process, and we are in the phase 2 or the PD&E study phase. Prior to this phase, FDOT performed the Sarasota and Manatee Barrier Islands traffic study, which we often refer to as the BITS, and that was completed in March of 2020. This PD&E study is the only phase currently funded in FDOT's 5-year work program, but the department is working with its partners to fund future phases. Okay. The purpose and need is a federal process that provides the basis for developing and evaluating project alternatives. The purpose of this project is to address pedestrian and bicycle safety issues and existing roadway deficiencies while enhancing multimodal connectivity and system linkage. The project is needed to improve safety conditions for both vehicle and multimodal traffic, enhance system linkage by extending the SunTrail network north, closing some of those gaps, and by connecting those proposed multimodal improvements on the bridges that connect to the island, and to accommodate the existing and future modal development, as well as to address the roadway deficiencies that include multimodal and ADA facilities and substandard roadway treatments along the corridor. So this slide presents the existing SunTrail network within the project limits. It's the green line here. The existing SunTrail network it just runs west of State Road 789 and extends between just north of the Longboat Pass Bridge all the way up to 5th Street. Our project will connect to the endpoint of 5th Street and continue north to the intersection of Gulf Drive and East Bay Drive intersection. So once the construction of the Longboat Pass Bridge is done, pedestrians and bicyclists will have a continuous dedicated facility from just south of the Longboat Pass Bridge to just south of the State Road 64 intersection.
and that's approximately 4 miles long. So our project is going to incorporate federal highway safe system approach. FDOT has adopted this approach, and this approach acknowledges that humans make mistakes, the human body is vulnerable, and that we should design and operate our transportation network to ensure if a crash does occur, it doesn't result in serious human injury. Our study team is considering all options and opportunities to improve safety along the corridor, and we are identifying and developing engineering solutions and best practices that encourage safe driving behavior to reduce roadway fatalities and serious injuries along the corridor. We also plan to collaborate with the local governments to ensure safety considerations are prioritized. So we have reviewed crash history from the years between the years 2018 and 2022 and found that bicycle and pedestrian crashes along this corridor are approximately 2 times higher than the statewide average. 46% of the severe crashes in that time period, and those are crashes that include fatal and serious injury crashes. Those involved a pedestrian or a bicycle. Additionally, 49% of the total crashes occurred at intersections. We are seeing a concerning trend of severe crashes going up since 2019. And in 2023, there were 4 serious crashes. 1 included a fatality. So we're performing a safety analysis to identify the existing safety issues and potential solutions to eliminate severe crashes. A safety workshop with key stakeholders, including law enforcement and first responders, is anticipated to occur in late summer. I'm not sure if July is really going to work, but it's more like late summer. And we want to gain those law enforcement and first responder input on their observations and potential solutions. So it'll be a good workshop, we hope. So this PD&E study is building upon previously completed studies, plans, and initiatives shown here. These studies and plans will help inform our study to provide a complete streets corridor that meets the needs and vision of Anna Maria Island. So the project approach is being developed. We plan to engage with the Anna Maria Island community to gain input on known issues, potential opportunities that can better inform our technical approach. With the mixture of land uses and the high density of multimodal users on the corridor really does need safer facilities for pedestrians, bicyclists, and transit users. The project goal is to reduce flooding along the corridor, and we are going to be performing a drainage analysis as part of this study. We'll be engaging with the cities of Bradenton Beach and Holmes Beach for their insights on drainage issues along the corridor. So our study began in January, and we are currently developing preliminary concepts and alternatives. Again, a safety workshop is planned or tentatively planned for late summer. The alternatives public workshop is anticipated to occur in early 2025. That's where we'll present those initial alternatives for public input and feedback. Those alternatives will then be refined and evaluated for potential effects to environmental resources. And if required, a public hearing may be held in mid-2025, where the preferred alternative would be presented to the public. Public involvement and stakeholder input will occur throughout the study, and we expect the study to be complete in early 2026. We have a safety moment today. It's just a reminder that as we approach summer, that period between Memorial Day and Labor Day is considered the 100 deadliest days for teen drivers in the year. Parents can help ensure a safer ride for their teens by talking to them about safety, eliminating distractions like cell phones, obeying posted speed limits, remaining attentive, restrict nighttime driving, and of course, buckling up. So after today, if you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to contact Adam or myself. Our contact information is shown here. To stay up to date on the project, we have a project website, and you can scan this QR code, and that'll take you right to the project website. We appreciate the opportunity to present an overview of the project, and we're here to answer any questions.
Any questions?
You're that good, huh?
I already bored them.
Not seeing any. Thank you.
Thank you all so much.
Next, we have item 6B, MGO report, congestion management process, CMP update. Is she online?
Yeah, I'll just brief intro. So as you know, we've been working through the CMP update for the last year or so. We're kind of coming towards the close here. We've worked through all of our performance metrics and our prioritization process based on the data that's available and that we've evaluated. This will be going to the board for a somewhat final presentation similar to the resiliency study to discuss all of our findings up to this point with a formal adoption out in September with the final document as well. So with that, I'll turn it over to Yihang, who is joining us from Hiddleston Associates. So I'll help run through some of the data that we've evaluated and some of the next steps that we're going to do here in the next few months.
Thank you, Ryan. Hello, everyone. This is Yihang from Hiddleston. I will give you an update about the CMP. We have talked about this projects for the last two TAC meetings. So during this meeting, I want to give you an overview, looking back of what we have been working on and also what we haven't been shared during the meeting and talk about the next steps. Just a recap of CMP. What is a CMP? It is a FHWA requirement, and the CMP has a couple steps, including define goals and objectives, which we have talked about before, and also the recommended performance measures based on each goal and objectives. And we are also review all the available data source for the CMP and evaluate the performance measures, and then identify strategies and the monitoring system for the CMP. Next slide. So the task one we have completed is evaluating and updating goals, data, and needs. We have reviewed all the existing goals and objectives and also update the goals and objectives to fit the current need and also assess all the data sources and define the performance measures that we are going to use. Next page. So the CMP task 2 is assessing strategies, implementation, and evaluation. We have the hotspot analysis and the performance measures analysis, and also identify the congestion management strategies and recommendations for implementation. And the third item is evaluation of effectiveness. So first, I want to share about the hotspot analysis that we have done and also used to identify the prioritization locations or corridors. And here is the 8 goals. Just want to recap every one of the 8 goals that we shared before and the 8 goals that in the CMP that we are going to continue using. So go next slide. So here is the data collection that the study network that we have shared before, including the state highway system and other recommended roadways. The data collected for year 2022, we're using the crash data from Signal 4, the AADT data from FDOT, HERE data, NPM-RDS for the probe speed data. We are also using the American Commuter Survey from 2018 to 2022 5-year estimate, and also collaborate with MPO's active transportation plan and collect some data that from the active transportation plan. And also FDOT sourcebook is another data source that we used for this CMP update. Next slide. So starting here, I'm going to walk you through each goals and the performance measures that we using and the overall conclusion that we draw from each of the performance measure. So the goal number 1 is to identify the problematic spots with safety concerns. We do a hotspot analysis, and also we identify the intersections and segments with a higher history of crashes. Next slide. From this slide, you will see 2 maps that showing the hotspot based on the number of fatalities and number of serious injuries, and using the year 2018 to 2022 Signal 4 analytics data that you can see the overall high crash locations. Most of the high crash locations on the map you can see is in the downtown Brighton area, and some intersections or interchange area in the MPO. Next slide, please. Goal number 2 is to provide a high quality mobility to people and freight. So we're using level of service on the map. So this map, we are showing a pass or fail, and all those level of service criteria, we take it from the FDOT QLOS handbook. So the conclusion we can draw from this map, you can see a lot of failure along I-75, DeSoto Bridge, and downtown Brighton. You see a lot of red areas there. And there are some 070, you can also see in the rural area, there is a little bit of failure along that segment because of the AADT is really high in that area. So this map, you can basically see using the level of service, you can see a lot of failure in the MPO area. So we are trying to say we're not using just one specific performance measures to define the congestion issue. So that's why we are providing multiple layers of different performance measures to see and view the MPO's congestion situation. Next slide is showing the vehicle hours of delay. You can see a high delay along I-75, which is not shocking. A lot of areas have very, very high congestion along I-75, and other areas like downtown Brighton and DeSoto Bridge, you also see decent amount of congestion there, and also downtown Sarasota area. Next slide. So this is another performance measures we use that showing during normal weekday commute time, which is 7 to 8 a.m., 5 to 6 p.m. using the 2022 year data, and we're showing a ratio which is based on the average travel speed comparing to the posted speed limit. So you can see some areas, the change from red to green, which green is showing some areas people are speeding, and the red area is basically the areas that are very congested and people traveling at very low speed. The congestion is along I-75, downtown Brighton, and also DeSoto Bridge, which is showing a very, very low travel speed there. Downtown Sarasota and Longboat Key area also showing some level of congestion, and people are slowing for their travel. Next slide. Goal number 7 is to increase the reliability of travel within the CMP network. We're using the level of travel time reliability and also categorize that by whether it's reliable or unreliable. So the threshold we use here is from the federal guidelines. and the overall percent of the CMP network. Miles operating reliably is 94% of the roadway is really operating reliably. Some areas not really reliable, I-75 and the DeSoto Bridge and downtown Brighton area. Next slide. Goal number 4, we want to provide efficient transportation operations. The measures we use including planning time index and level of travel time reliability, which is all refer whether the trip is reliable or not. And we can see some areas are showing unreliable travel. For example, I-75, still downtown Brighton and Longboat Key area, downtown Sarasota, we are seeing a lot of relatively high planning time index, which is showing the trip is unreliable and have some non-recurring congestion. Next slide. We also do a weekend planning time index analysis, basically focusing on more of a tourism pattern from November to April timeframe, and we are seeing some unreliable weekend travel, mostly in like the island area and also the DeSoto Bridge. I-75 during the weekend is relatively more reliable than the weekday, but we are still seeing some non-recurring congestion along some part of I-75. But the island area is definitely showing very unreliable during the weekend. Goal number 7 is to promote accessible use of the transportation system for all users. We have shown some bar chart before, so I'm not replicating what we have seen before, but trying to recap from a high level. We are analyzing the percent of the network with pad, back, or trail facilities. And based on the non-motorized facilities, we are seeing a 57.1% of coverage of the overall CMP network. And also the percent of population within half mile of transit, bike, pad, or trail facility. We are seeing 52% of population within half mile of transit stops and pack back facilities. We are seeing it around 61%. Trail facility has a relatively low percent of population coverage, which is 11%. Next slide. Goal number 8, we're focusing on encouraging preservation of the natural environment while maintaining economic development and livability. This is a map showing all the EV number of EV chargers, which is a level 2 and above. Basically, you can see the map shows a good EV charger coverage in the urban area, but it's really sparse and relatively low coverage in the rural area. And along I-75, most of the interchange access point, you will see EV charger station near the exit or entrance. So here we have shown many of the performance measures, and we are using all those performance measures and overlaying all the metrics that we have analyzed so far to decide the prioritization locations with the ground truth review. This is a breakdown of the threshold that we're using. We're using speed ratio, PTI, seasonal PTI, vehicle hours of delay, level of service. These measures all take into consideration. The speed ratio give it the highest percentage, which we think we rank it really high because it's during the commute time and reflect people's actual feeling about the congestion. PTI, seasonal PTI is also 25%. The vehicle hours delay is 10% relatively, and level of service 10%. Also, based on the analysis, we are also considering the safety analysis. Some of the high crash locations, we will also identify those as prioritization locations and provide and identify improvements and solutions for those locations. Next slide. Next slide will show, based on all the traffic performance measures, that based on the prioritization criteria that I shared before, what is the current prioritization locations on the map. So one thing I want to point out is DOT has the I-75 master plan, so that will focus mainly on I-75 and help to solve all the congestion issue along I-75. So for the CMP and for the MPO, we will focus on the remaining facilities, and we are not going to recommend any other projects along I-75. So from this map, you can, sorry, I just want to point out some areas that are really high congested and high prioritization for us, including the DeSoto Bridge area, downtown Brayton, and also downtown Sarasota. There are some segments that we see as relatively high congestion. And the next step is from these locations, we are going to recommend projects along the top 15 to 20 locations. Next slide. Next slide, we develop a congestion management toolbox, which is focusing on mobility, remedies, and data collection, connectivity, those three main topics. And this is a snippet of the toolbox we have so far. Using the toolbox, we are going to identify the strategies from the previous prioritization locations that I shared. Next slide. They're part of the CMP. We're going to evaluate effectiveness of the projects and the strategies we identified. This is a review of ongoing or funded projects from DOT's work program and the 2019 CMP. We have found at least 3 to 4 projects that the previous CMP mentioned that overlap with the FDOT work program, which is a good sign to show that DOT is also using the CMP to help promote and help resolve the congestion issue. Next slide, please. So the task 3 is the final CMP document, which we will provide the full CMP document in the fall season, and also we will have an executive summary to summarize what we have found from the current from this CMP analysis. So to conclude the next steps, we will identify recommendations for implementation at each prioritization locations, and we are also going to wrap up the CMP document, which we'll publish in the fall season. Thank you, everyone. This is the update of the CMP update.
Any comments or questions?
Isaac Brennan had a comment online. It said, hello, with the high levels of weekday and weekend unreliability on the north end of Longboat and onto Anaria Island, I believe it makes sense to ensure that the Gulf Drive State Road 789 PBA study focus also have a corresponding focus of improving vehicle efficiency and access management, particularly in light of the update of the business improvements that we talked about.
Thank you. Yeah, and I'm sure we will consider that in coordination with the department. Obviously, any changes to recommendations made to 789 will impact consider of those impacts. Certainly, we've noticed, as you mentioned, as season progresses from November to April, typically our main season, we do see a strong correlation of longer trips, nearly 4x in some instances during spring break and during March, where a 10-minute trip could take 45 or 50 minutes. Something that we need to be cognizant of, because there is a fine line between, people deciding to not travel to our area going forward if it is too difficult to get out to the places that people enjoy to go so much. So that is a main concern of ours, as well as is balancing that with the needs of I-75 and many other major regional roadways, 301 included. So that is the concept and the idea of the CUP. It's not only just to address our standard measures that we're required to report on, but also incorporating many of these other factors, planning time index, the regionality of it, and the seasonality of these types of congestion to better understand things that we can deploy and hopefully improve, right? The cost of adding capacity to our roadways or building new roadways is astronomical in these days. So any way that we can kind of lean on technology or ITX or any other types of deployments that are out there, we need to do that in areas where we're experiencing this reoccurring congestion. So that's the general concept that we're looking at addressing. So obviously we'll coordinate with the department and Longboat to make sure we take that into account.
David?
I'm just wondering from Adam and Colleen, is that, how much can you address within the scope, related to, moving vehicles efficiently? We've got the safety components very prominently included.
Yeah, it is something that we have been talking about here and there. It's not, it's mentioned in the scope. We put stuff in there just in case and for stuff like this, because you never know when things are gonna come up. Unfortunately, that decision is kind of over our head at this point. However, we are looking, we have had a couple of meetings with our traffic operations, kind of discussing the possibilities of, what could be done at certain intersections, what could be done with the roadway long term. Those are still being evaluated. Those meetings were very recent, so we still haven't really got a whole lot ironed out.
So you might be able to include some, and, we're looking at sort of a potential follow-up study to the Barrier Island traffic study that could also address the findings, what's been implemented, what can be implemented next, what's actually viable, and what types of recommendations that came out of the Barrier Island study that focused on, our northern Barrier Islands could also be applicable to Barrier Islands in Sarasota. So and further south. So we'll
I would add that part of the idea of this study is that we make it comfortable. I've been visiting the Anna Maria Island, which is why I really wanted to win this project, for like a week every year with family and friends. And I love to take that free trolley that runs up and down the island, and I'm scared to death when I'm sitting there in at certain locations. You're just on the beach in a corner on the gutter waiting. So the idea is that if we make it comfortable for people to use the pedestrian and bicycle facilities, we get those on-island trips off the road. And we start promoting, better use of the transit system. The ferry is now started, and now we can make it safer for them. We can have folks with the new multimodal proposed in the bridge replacements coming. That would hopefully make people feel more comfortable riding and biking over to the island, and then just pick up right at those locations, and they feel comfortable with that. But we're also going to look at ITS as far as messaging signs, where parking could be available, where we could do some park and ride, and that's where we would love to
Great, and this study is certainly available to you all. Thank you for already mentioning that you are looking at the previous work that's been done by the MPO, and some of our jurisdictions have local analyses that I'm sure they'll want to share during the course of the PD&E for the complete streets, and as we develop any further congestion efforts. Thank you.
There's absolutely another one we're looking at with the analysis as well that we're going to discuss a little more. But obviously the biggest concern is right-of-way needs for that. So that is something we are looking at.
All right. Thank you, Econ. Next up, LRT resiliency study. Olin.
Yeah, and with us today is William Roll. It's important to go through the resilience study, where we stand today, some of the evaluations that we've completed, and next step. So with that, I'll hand it over to William. Take it away.
All right, well, good morning. It's a pleasure to be here today, giving you an update on the study. I'm disappointed it's not going to be an action item, so good to find out here in discussion. So, excuse me. So what I'd like to do today is just kind of go over the recap in terms of the project matrix, talk to you about the fact sheets, and then what the next steps are on the project. So some of this, some people might have already seen this before in terms of how we're taking a look at the projects. We're basically taking the projects and taking a look at the level within the DOT resiliency action plan in terms of how it was rating. And then we also took information from the TAC and stakeholder engagement. And if it was something that was in the DOT's wrap, it was something that both TAC and the stakeholders indicated as being high, we were indicating that as a high priority. And then you can see on the right, this assessment priorities. In terms of thinking about the projects, there's two different types of projects, okay? There's a group of projects that are currently identified as being items in your existing long-range transportation plan, cost feasible plan, okay? And the reason why that's important is we're taking a look at different funding sources that you all may apply within your LRTP process or your list of priority projects. It's important to recognize that there's a distinction between the two different projects. Now, I like to make the analogy when we talk about resiliency, okay? Very few of these projects are a pure resiliency project, okay? And to the extent that there's resiliency money, you go and say, I'm going to do this project and use 100% resiliency money. In many cases, in the projects that are identified in the LRTP, resiliency is a component part of those projects. So the analogy I would make is kind of like going on vacation, you have to buy airfare, okay? Well, the resiliency is kind of the airfare in terms of the project. And if we can cover that cost using resiliency money, that's good. You have kind of two options as an MPO in terms of how you want to move forward in terms of formula funds that flow both to the area and also to the district. Do you save that money up and then ultimately be able to do maybe a standalone resiliency project? Or is it something that's used to accelerate projects and so they can be implemented as part of the funding solution, because part of the project is resiliency. We also recognize in terms of distinction between state projects and non-state projects, okay? And many of those non-state projects would be a challenge to do without receiving some additional funding. So as we break the matrix up, the other part is those projects that are not currently in your cost feasible plan and in your LRTP. And those projects can potentially be something that you're looking at other funding in terms of discretionary funding, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. So basically, 4 big boxes of projects. So we've been working on developing the identification of both the projects and then also the potential mitigation options at a planning level and highlighting the criticality, like why is this project a potential priority? And so we've submitted it to the MPO staff, and they're reviewing chapter 2. And included within that is a series of fact sheets. And the intent of those fact sheets is basically something that kind of like is you're starting to think about going after that money, or you're trying to articulate within the long range plan why this particular project is a good candidate for resiliency money, and communicating that to the department and other stakeholders. That's very clear, very concise, 2 pages. This is the location. This is what the issue is. This is the potential mitigation strategies, and whether or not it's contained within the long range transportation plan or not. So in terms of project funding, so there's 4 major areas of funding. There's the PROTECT funding from Federal Highway Administration, and there's an element of that that's both formula, and then there's a portion of it that's discretionary or grants. There's Federal Emergency Management funding or BRIC funding. There's some funding in terms of the Department of Environmental Protection, and then also if it's a big enough project, you can go after a raise grant, although those particular applications are very, very competitive. One of the things that we do find typically on state projects, the state's more likely to commit to going after a grant to fund a project if that project's already contained within the work program, because getting a grant commits the department or other partners to funding the remaining portions of the project. So it's kind of hard for the department to go and say, oh yeah, this is a $50 million project. I want 15 million resiliency money, here, please give me a grant, because then you have to come up with the other $35 million. So usually the sweet spot in terms of a lot of the discretionary grant items is something that's in about year 3 to 5 of the work program. It's a really good project and it can help out. Now, you know, I sit there and think about that. I said, well, what am I getting? So I do a grant and, but this is a project that's already funded, but what it does is it allows other things to start moving into the work program or other projects to be accelerated as well. So in terms of project schedule, we're in May, we're presenting to committees this month. And then we'll also have the MPO board meeting, and we are currently working on chapter 3, which is LRTP integration. And so a big part of that is to help provide kind of safe harbor, if you will, with your existing 2045 LRTP, but also to be that guiding component in the development that's underway on your 2050 long-range transportation plan. And so getting into the funding, incorporation of those fact sheets, as well, and potential changes in terms of goals, objectives, and performance measures, and then ultimately prioritization. So that's what we're currently working on, and then that will be brought, I believe, in September. I will be bringing it back to the committee for discussion. And obviously, 2050 LRTP, we got a little bit of time, but it's helpful to go ahead and get this one taken care of and understand how it should guide the development of the plan. With that, I will open it up to any questions that you might have. Thank you very much.
David?
As a comment, we tried this with safety, where we tried to get ahead of the curve with the federal funding so that you all could go for implementation grants. Decided to go for safety, you know, all Safe Streets for All planning grants first. But with resilience, you're going to see the same type of pattern where, you know, there is federal money there, there's more coming, and state has a plan. We have this plan that will identify a lot of projects within your jurisdictions. I want to, you know, put this way out front, that be thinking about implementation grants and projects. You probably don't need to redo an overall resilience plan at this level, because most of this is being done. You know, you can incorporate it into a simpler plan that you don't have to wait to apply for implementation money. I think Sarasota County actually already received one Protect grant for a bridge replacement, and we would hope that as these you know, plans get completed, you'll use them and incorporate them in your efforts to get start building. Thanks.
The size of the need is substantial, but the reality in terms of going after funding, find your best project as a 2-county MPO and pursue that project first, because that's where you're going to be most likely to be successful. Submitting 15 applications, probably not going to be real successful, and that's part of the intent of this, is to help guide that. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up, we have 2050 LRTP progress update. Ryan?
Thanks for that segue one, right into the 2050 LRTP. And as mentioned, you know, we've updated you all in kicking this off. We've got our survey. Here's the team that's working on this. We've got our 3 GPC as well as our large background again from 2045 already dealt with our outreach campaign and materials, including our new slogan and logo, including Invest Today and Transform Tomorrow. I just want to give you a brief update of where we stand at this point. Also earlier this year, in May, we developed a full outline as well as responsibilities for each consultant as well as the MPO's team. We developed our 2050 SC data forecast as well as coordination with the state and their modeling office. We've got some good feedback and comments on that, and that's ready to be moved forward and implemented into the District 1 regional planning model. We've sent out and submitted our public outreach strategy through that, as well as now moving into our survey and visioning workshop. The survey was posted, I believe, last week. And it is open until June 15th, so please disseminate that and get that out to. We hope to get as many respondents and comments back from the public as well as all of our technical staff as possible. We also have our visioning workshop that's upcoming here at the end of May. It's held the auditorium right here across the street, May 29th at 4:30. This will be our first major event for the LRTP and will incorporate a lot of our historical information. As previously mentioned, this is an update process, not a full revamp. We're going to be evaluating our previous scenarios, our existing conditions and build room 2050 data, as well as the 2050 vision, which will be the draft concept brought on by our elected officials, you all, as well as the citizens out there that will help us develop our 2050 vision. So with that, here are these links to our visioning survey, both in English and Spanish. If you'd like to take that or I can send it to you, we'll pass this presentation out at the end and send it to you all. So if you can disseminate these through any of your newsletters or online, or your websites, it would be much appreciated. Also, here's a register link as well for the QR code for the visioning workshop that's happening the 29th, as I said, from 4:30 to 6:30 at the Selby Auditorium, USF Sarasota Manatee, right across the street. So with that, we'll take any questions or any comments you have about the LRTP at this point. But we hope to have you all involved in participating in all of our events and surveys to come. And Grace says something to that.
If you haven't registered, you can take out your phone and scan the QR code right now, at least just so we have it, you know, as an option to register in the phone. So we would love to.
Comments? All right, thank you, Ryan.
Thank you.
Next we have the fiscal year 24-25, 25-26 budget overview, David Machado.
Okay.
You sure? Up on the screen.
Oh, yeah, you guys are scanning it.
Oh, thank you.
Just one more. He's right there. He did it already.
Did you get it?
Got it. Okay.
Where are you looking?
All right, cool.
So Ryan, Dave asked me to just brief you guys quickly on the budget for the new cycle, for the 24-26 cycle of new UPLP. As you guys know, every 2 years, we have to approve the new funding in conjunction with DOT, FHWA, and everybody. So I just wanted to give you a quick overview of what of the comparison of last last cycle's funding for this cycle's funding versus the new cycle's funding. So you all have an idea what the changes made. So to explain a little bit, the bottom part is a consolidation of the 2 years, the 23-24 cycle, which would actually be 22-23, 23-24 cycle of the UPWP. So that gives you a net total of what our funding was for the 2-year cycle. And the top part basically breaks down the 2-year allocation for this is our PL funds. And it shows the carry forward of funding. I know you're probably looking at that second line right there where it says carry forward and it says 350,000 instead of 100,000. That was brought to the board as we continue to clear numbers up and realizing that we may not be able to have time to do certain things that the MPO was planning on doing before the end of the UPWP. We're starting to consolidate and bring those numbers, hone those numbers in as to what our carry forward is gonna be. Just to answer if you had that question. The SU funds is the same thing. As we go through, at least from the PL and the SU, you see the difference. We actually are receiving roughly 140 grand more in between the 2 years than last year. And DSU, we're receiving 400, it looks that we're receiving $400,000 more. But we actually didn't receive the full allocation that we originally thought that we were gonna receive. And this current cycle of 22-24 cycle. So the numbers are pretty much stagnant, it's pretty much the same. That's for the SU and the local funds, which is obviously local participation towards the MPO. We just continue to use those funds for anything that's not allowable under the state or federal guidelines, or anything related to the MPO that we don't want to really deal with the red tape, if you want to call it that way. Well, that's basically the budget. I don't know if you guys want me to bring anything else up. I may have gone too far into details.
No, like local funds is an easy example where, you know, if we don't get a PL allocation, we don't get an SU allocation on hand, on time, they're not authorized appropriately on time. We have our ability to dig into some of the local funds or past years, TD work, LCBs, if there's work that's scoped outside of, for example, the only thing that's not up here is our TV funding, about $30,000 a year for each county. As you can guess, that's not nearly enough to operate as a planning agency to deliver the LCBs and TV services that we expect to. So we had to assist in the TDSP development last year. We utilized some of those local funds to help deliver that product on time. And without the tape, as David mentioned, dealing with federal highway or DOT's approval for some of those things. So this will continue to allow us to free up some of our resources year over year. It allows us to work better for you all. I would say it allows us to work directly with the jurisdictions in times of need or unforeseen circumstances that we're able to kind of help out in the situation. So that's exactly what the purpose of the local fund is. David mentioned the only thing I'll add on it's on the SU front. We continue to work with the department on SU. We program those funds for design all the way, you know, for PDE through construction, but also planning work. We've also allocated a little bit of money this year for capital projects. As you know, our space here might be limited here in the future years. It's kind of a small office with a new owner. So we'll see how this relationship continues to work in this building, but there has been some capital expenses built into the 25-26 budget deemed allowable by federal highway and DOT. The rest of that will continue to be used for planning studies and activities that were identified in task 2 of the UPW. So really, other than that, PL is allocated as normal based on population and the base allocation decided by NPOAC. But that will continue forward as we know, at least for the next 10 years, because that won't happen again until the enforcement plans are out again. So really standard budget, not a whole lot has changed. We've been able to kind of be fairly flexible in what we do. Task.
No, just if your jurisdiction has any office space with lots of parking and meeting rooms near the county line that you are looking to fill, let us know.
About 6,000 square feet. We need roughly 40 parkings. That's kind of our only request at this point. To add to what Ryan said about the TD, I did miss to put the TD up. Last cycle, we were receiving roughly $60,000 a year between the two counties. For this cycle, it's looking like $63,000, so there's an increase of $3,000. Within the greater scheme, the increase is marginal, you know, when you take into consideration the amount, the sheer cost of doing anything nowadays. And the future plans for going to the local fund, the future plan, like Ryan mentioned, is to be able to grow this to a point where if we ever had a shortfall or there was an issue with allocated not receiving our funds on time, that the local fund would help the MPO continue to operate as normal and make it a seamless transition until we get those funds. I think that's it.
Thank you, David. Ryan, David. Once around the table, third over here. You have anything?
I just wanted to bring everybody's attention. On May 6th, there was a ribbon cutting that happened at Lone Boat Key that we were involved in the installation of the new pedestrian hybrid beacons. The beacons are there to create a safer environment for the pedestrians and cyclists who wish to cross from the bay to the beach. And that should allow for more safety for all the users. And if there's any difficulty, knowing how to use them, we can make sure that that's brought to the attention of how to use the beacons properly.
And don't trust the cars.
Always look both ways before crossing.
I have found an alternate finally.
Okay.
This is Nicole Tremblay, and she's our senior planning. And she doesn't take that role.
Yeah. Alright, I have one thing to share, which is, the city of Sarasota partnered with Sarasota County to do a bike from work event. It's this Friday at 3:30 at Payne Park, so if you're interested, please come. Please attend. There is a registration. I will send it out to Grace unless Grace already put it on the newsletter.
It's already in the newsletter.
Perfect, she's on it. So if you see it on the newsletter comes out, Tuesday traffic jams comes out Tuesday.
Transportation.
Okay, that changed. All right.
And it's been changed. And if you are not subscribed, please subscribe today. So that you get it tomorrow.
So that was a plug, okay? So make sure you, register if you want to attend for bike to work, bike from work. It's Friday, 3:30 at Payne Park. That's all I had. And Grace, you had something, message?
Yeah, Nina, did you want to share that?
Sure. Just a reminder, on May 23rd, we are hosting a Destination Zero Safety Forum. It will be at Robert L. Taylor Community Complex starting at 9 a.m. This is a really great background on roadway safety 101, learning about the objectives, the values and principles of the safe system approach. Speakers will include Florida's FDOT Safety Office, District 1, Federal Highway Administration, Department of Health, and the FDO.
And there will be refreshments and little breakfast bites, if that helps.
Register.
But you have to register.
All right, our next meeting is September 9th. Long way to go, 10 a.m. So meeting adjourned. Watch you out before noon.